This episode of the Citadel Cafe is brought to you by listeners like you. Visit patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe to find out how you can become a patron and help make this show possible. This is the Citadel Cafe, episode number 372 for Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020. My name is Joel Duggan, and the Citadel Cafe is where my friends and I hang out to talk about the geeky stuff that we are into. Back again this week is Megan Townsend. You can find her at Megan Townsend on all the social media that matters. Hello again.
Hello. How are you?
It's been a minute. No, it hasn't. It's been 4 days.
A week.
A week. Yeah. It's rare that we do back to back these days because we're all so busy, which is weird considering that you'd think that we wouldn't be as busy. But I don't know if it's back to school. Now, I don't have kids in school. I'm not a teacher. I only have friends that are teachers. I don't have anybody immediately in my life that is a teacher. However, I've noticed working from home from 10 years now, I always start to get busy in September. It's like the whole world just amps up. Even if I've got nothing to do with school, I always feel like September and fall is that like hustle bustle busy season. And it's been like that ever since I started my own business. And I don't know whether it's just because I did that, 12 years of traditional public school where September was back to work after vacation, and that just mentality sinks in. But I'm hitting September running because not only is it the turnover of a new month, which is always busy for me from an administration side of things, but it's also the beginning of a new week because then I had Spawn Chunks podcast on Monday and I've got the Citadel Cafe today, and it's just been this. I've been treading water for 3.5 days. I think my head's above. I'm not sure where you're sitting, but that's where I am.
I mean, I feel like I haven't had a lot of time for my personal stuff right now. I started a new position with work, so I'm now working from home and will be, but I'm still just getting into it. We're just doing the training for it right now, but because it's such long days, it's like it's 8-hour days, 9-hour days, but with 8 hours of pay. So it's been interesting. Like, even though I'm sitting at my desk, like by the end of the day, I'm still tired. Because I have just been sitting all day, which is another thing entirely. I actually don't like it as much as I thought I did.
I have to get up. I hear you on the sitting all day.
Yeah.
Well, I've got some back issues that will creep up if I'm not careful, and I've found it very challenging the last little while because of all the streaming and content stuff that I've been doing, and I can't do that standing up. I have to sit for that. I could try it standing, but I had a standing desk for years when I had a very bad back problem, and I could not sit down for any length of time. And I've just never been able to learn to draw standing up digitally, in the ways that I need to professionally. And I tried doing some gaming standing up as well. Wasn't my favorite thing. The only thing I was able to really do standing up was World of Warcraft. That was it. Anything else that requires a lot more kind of movement and coordination, I just wasn't comfortable doing it.
I feel like I can't focus. Do you remember there was this show like years ago, and I think I just remember watching it on YTV when I was like, back in the late
YTV.
90s, right?
Yeah,
I know, right? Back in the late 90s, and it was like Video Games Live. No, it wasn't Video Games Live. Is that what it was? I don't remember. But it was basically like a gaming competition where kids would play games, like young kids, like they're maybe like 12 or something, but they were all playing the game standing up. And I remember watching it and being like, how do they play standing up? Like, I remember like I can't ever be on the show because I can't play them standing up. It's like, I feel that.
Even
but
with a controller, I couldn't do it.
No, I know, exactly. It's weird. And they have to like stand back like away from this podium, and I'm just like, how, like, where are you resting your arms? Like, it's really uncomfortable. throwback. I think I unlocked a core memory from some for some Canadians there. Um, Jeez, but yeah, no, it's like I have to like force myself. Well, I wear a watch that tells me to stand up. So
Right.
so like whenever it prompts me to stand, I'm like, well, I'm standing and I'm stretching because I need it. God, do I need it? And it's very nice actually. I'm really happy that I have that reminder, which is much needed. But because our training days are so structured right now, we have 2 hours in the morning, we have a 15-minute break, we have another 2 hours. We have an hour lunch, another 2 hours, another 15, and then 2 hours again afterwards. It's only 2 hours at a time, but when you're sitting there listening to someone just talk at you,
Yeah.
it's very dry.
Yeah, you're not doing
I'm
much.
sure once I actually start the work, I'm hoping it's going to be okay. But right now, it's just the training, and a lot of it is base stuff that I kind of know because they're going through like best practices and like how to be a good employee. I'm just like, but I've already worked for the company for 5 years,
Right.
so it's it's this. I know how to be a good employee. I know how to talk to people.
It's one of
Um,
those things where like you might pick up a grain here or there or a nice reminder, so you know you're going to have to sit through it, but like 85% of the content you're like, "Yep, yep, I know
Yeah,
that too."
and
Yeah.
most of the content is just, how to use the software that we have to use to do the job in the first place. And
Oh,
I'd
right.
much rather like a hands-on tutorial on how to do that than
Oh, yeah.
having someone just walk me through and be like, here, then you do this, and then you do that. I mean, it's pretty easy. It's pretty self-explanatory,
Yeah.
but
But still like a
still.
2-hour lecture on instructions like that, like you well for the first little bit you're probably going to have to go back and reference that because like you're never going to retain all that
No,
in one
exactly.
lecture. I know what you mean. I've got a podcast recommendation actually. I just sent this to you before the show, but I thought, it actually might be a decent thing to share, with people here on the podcast as well. It's
Hmm.
called Work in Sanity. Fun play on words, and it's from Tom Merritt and Patrick Beja. FrenchSpin.com for Patrick, and Tom Merritt, two M's and two T's, pretty sure. I'll have the links in the show notes. .com for Tom. And they've been working from home for 10 plus years. Tom writes novels and runs a podcasting business. And Patrick also does full time podcasting and content creation from home. And I listen to it because I know them, like I've met them before, and I'm not tight friends with them, but I would consider them kind of like podcasting friends. And
Right.
they um, they go over a lot of stuff that I know, but it's also been a decent refresh and reminder of things that I may have been a little bit lax on during the pandemic. When you kind of feel like, okay, there's a lot of things that I'm not doing right now, but I'm also trying to deal with a lot of outside world stress, and so sometimes these things slip. And
Hmm.
I just thought that it was for I remember listening to it thinking like, I don't necessarily need every episode of this. Some of the resources they have are fantastic, but for me, it's like I do have friends that are working from home for the first time, and sending this along to them is a great resource because the show episodes are like 15 minutes.
Oh, great.
Yeah, no, they're really short. It's the kind of thing that you can basically listen to over your morning coffee, really. And they're all really good tips. And a lot of the stuff recently was about exercise and being active, but they're not talking about working out. They're talking about like making sure you're walking to the mail or walking to your dog, or do that extra walk with your dog at lunchtime or something like that because you are working from home. And it does mean that you get to stand up for 20 minutes. Like they're not saying like you have to go to the gym and run 3 miles. Like they're saying like just getting up and moving around. And
Yeah.
I used to use, when I was dealing with my back and dealing with other issues, I used to use what's called the Pomodoro technique. It's got a bunch of different names. It started off with people using a tomato egg timer, and that's where the thing got its name. But it's a 25-minute, 5-minute cycle. And so you do a task for 25 minutes uninterrupted. And then for 5 minutes, you take a break and you do something else. Ideally, that's supposed to be something away from your current space. So what I used to do was
Huh.
basically chores. Like I would put laundry in, or if the laundry was dry, I would fold laundry. And chances are I couldn't fold everything in 5 minutes. So it's like you do 25 minutes of answering email or whatever, and then for 5 minutes, it's strict. Like there's apps that you can download for your mobile devices that'll do this, and it's just a cycle of like 25 and 5, 25 and 5. And after you do that 4 times, it's 2 hours. Sorry, yeah, 2 hours, and then
Yeah, 2 hours.
then
Yeah.
you're supposed to take a 15-minute break. And it's not check Twitter. And if it is check Twitter, it's check Twitter on your phone, but get up from your desk and do it. Like just go
Right.
somewhere else. And I would do dishes. Like I'd fill the sink with soapy water and have a bunch of dishes to do. And I would go out and do 5 minutes of dishes and then come back, sit down and do 25 minutes of work. And when I had a lot of stuff to muscle through and I found myself being distracted, I found it really good. I'm a lot.
That's good to know
Yeah.
because I'm the type of person who I have to like jump in and like I have to finish a task. Like if I start a task, I have to finish the whole task, and often it just spirals into doing another task. Like I just,
Yeah.
I kind of get on a roll, and I sometimes and then just end up not getting anywhere. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
So
yeah. You
that's
just start
actually really helpful.
multitasking and stuff like that, and that's
Yeah.
and that's what I find too with it is that the thing is that the 25 minutes is over sooner than you think, because most times you can't do something in 25 minutes if you're talking about like answering your email or
Mm-hmm.
balancing your books or like whatever it is that you're doing that's work related. For me, a drawing, I can't do a drawing in 25 minutes. I mean, like I can, it's just not going to be a very good one. So and I would be in a flow, and the timer would go off, and I was like, "This is annoying." But then but if you listen to the timer, then there's two things that happen, right? You get a stand up break, your eyes get a break, and then after your 5 minute break is over, which also isn't very long, you're itching to get back to the task because you're only half done. Like you're only partway through it, so it's not like
Yeah.
you're about to drift off and do anything else. I've moved on from the 25 and 5. I now do more like 90 and 10 or 90 and 15, and it's
Mm-hmm.
only because I no longer use a timer. I will very often sit without using the back of the chair, so I'll just sit up,
Right.
and I can only hold that for an hour before I start to realize that I'm hunching over, and I'll start to feel it. I'll start to feel it in my wrists. I'll start to feel it in my mouse hand. I'll start to feel it in the back of my neck, and then I realize I'm slouching over, which means ding, too long at the computer. Go do something else. And I
Gotta
mean,
move.
yeah. And then working from home, it's just like my apartment has never been cleaner because like there's always something that has to be washed or put away or sweep the
And see,
floor.
that's
You
I'm
know,
hoping that I'm gonna have time to do that now. Like, and what's interesting, like again, when I was saying like I'm not able to work on my personal stuff as much, because I was working in a retail environment. I was on my feet for most of my shift, so I was moving around a lot, but still working. And then my breaks were a time for me to sit down and get some writing done. But now that I'm at a desk and I'm working at a desk, my breaks are spent getting up and moving. So I don't think that I think my personal work is going to suffer a little bit more because of it, which is not ideal, but maybe my whole apartment will be super clean going forward. That'd be really
yeah. Do
nice.
you have a different space that you do your personal work in?
Yes and no. I have my current setup right now. I have an IKEA desk with two Alex drawers set up for my Mac. The reason I have that currently is that I went to IKEA to get my desk for work, and they didn't have any desk legs at all. Like they're all sold out at IKEA because everyone is getting desks to work from home. So supply chains are constrained, and everyone is trying to do the same thing. So what I wanted to do was get like the Alex Linman combo where you have like an Alex drawer and then you have like the Linman tabletop with the Atlas legs. It's like build your own desk essentially, and create like an L-shaped environment. So I'd have one side for my streaming and personal work, and also as like a little vanity station. And then I have my work computer kind of on the other side. So if I swivel, a full 90 degrees, I'm at my work computer from where I'm sitting currently. But it's still in the same room because I don't have a lot of space otherwise.
Still though, that's decent because that's one of the tips from Work Insanity that they dropped was like I think it was actually someone that wrote in and says that something as simple as changing the way that they face in their office from gaming and relaxing on their computer to using the same computer for
Yeah.
work. they just have a second monitor, and they just one faces the wall and the other one faces the window, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And one of the other tips that they had was even having like a separate login. So like when you log in to do your work tasks, if you're using the same piece of equipment, you can have a different desk background, all business. Maybe it's kind of boring, or just maybe you don't have as many icons on your desktop, and like all the things, all the little shortcuts that you like to have leisurely are not there, and so that you can't drift off and doing get onto Facebook and all that kind of stuff as easily.
Yeah, and my computer is monitored for that. So if I do like go on Facebook, it's flagged. Right. So like
Really?
my work computer, yeah, well, flagged in the
Wow.
sense that like you're not supposed to be
Yeah.
doing leisurely stuff while you're working.
Yeah.
So, that's fine. So but that kind of, keeps you mentally on task. Like they don't want you,
Mm-hmm.
doing stuff that you're not supposed
Yeah.
to be doing, which is very fair, which I don't mind, personally. It will definitely help me stay on task. But I do have like my own login specifically that I use for work, and I have a separate login for home stuff.
Right. That's good.
My PC doesn't have a login at all because it doesn't go anywhere with me, but my MacBook, my
Right.
laptop,
Yeah.
is it's got its own login, totally separate, because I take it with me places, so I don't want people to be able to just get into it willy-nilly, just
Yeah.
in case.
I no longer have a laptop that works for laptop purposes. It's basically something that has to be plugged in all the time. So, and I barely use it. I only use it to watch movies and things that I can't get on my set-top box. So,
Yeah.
it's like it. I have a mobile solution now that I have a tablet, which is great. But it's I find that the majority of what I do now is either on one of my two desktops, one being Apple, the other being Windows, and I have found the amount of sitting challenging, but when I'm streaming, I have a lovely team of moderators that will remind me to take a break once an hour.
Yes.
Specifically, Rainbow Hearts to Cosmic, who is usually on top of the task, either with a poem, or some other sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? Passive aggressive. Like, I sort of kind of only want to listen to you once in a while, so you should probably take a break right now. Like, just really amusing reminders to like, hey, you've been streaming for an hour.
She's my favorite.
Oh, it's really fun. Well, I mean, and it takes the wagging mom finger out of like, take a break now.
It does.
It keeps it fun and
Yeah.
interesting, and it's healthy. Like I can tell you that one of the slight adjustments that's happened with playing Satisfactory is Satisfactory has a day-night cycle. It's 50 minutes of day, 5 minutes of night. The game is DAR dark when it's nighttime. You can't really do anything. It's hard to see. I can't imagine it's a good streaming experience for a viewer. So I line my breaks up with the day-night cycle. So sometimes that first break is longer. It's like an hour and 20. But after that, I'm doing 5 minutes and 50 minutes as opposed to an hour or an hour and 5. I find that I can
Right.
stream Satisfactory longer than other games because I'm taking breaks just that 10 minutes earlier. And I usually say 5 minutes and I throw up a timer. I don't usually make it back before the end of the 5 minutes, but whatever. I mean, I use the bathroom, I refresh my coffee, I fill up my water, and I usually stretch. And I find that I can stream for 3 or 4 hours easily, taking a break every hour. I had, every once in a while I'll have someone in the chat that'll ask me like, why do you break so often? And I'm just like, because it's healthy. Like you should too. Go get a
Yeah.
snack. Like I realize
Go get
that
a
people,
snack, go get a break.
will want to chat in the chat room, but everybody's going to be here in 5 minutes. No one's bailing. Like just go do something. Grab some food, get something else. Just, you
Yeah.
can just go look
That's
outside for
why
5 minutes,
Yeah, that's why my break, my BRB, screen is just like getting snacks BRB.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I should probably change it to go get a snack.
Yeah.
Go drink some water. Well, I have my Nightbot that says like, go drink some water, go pee, go get something to eat. Stare at a window.
Yeah, stare at a
Observe
window.
some art. Who
Yeah.
knows? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's good to take the breaks. But speaking of Twitch, actually, it's one thing I wanted to bring to everybody's attention. I am going to try to be streaming. I don't want to say more often, but certainly more on a schedule during September because Twitch is running the September promotion, which we'll have linked here on the show notes for the show. It's a promotional month of streaming, encouraging new subscriptions to channels that are affiliates or above. And the way that they're working it this year is 20% off the first month of a new recurring 1 month subscription, 25% off the first 3 months of a new recurring 3-month subscription, and 30% off of the first 6 months of a new recurring 6-month subscription. I'm seeing this happening on Patreon as well. Patreon recently rolled out the ability for people to subscribe or support on Patreon for a year to be an annual membership. I don't know how I feel about that. I have to kind of dive a little bit more into it. Twitch, it seems to me that it's more like I guess with Twitch, it's recurring. So you're signing up to be like a 3 or 6 month sub, but it's not all in one chunk. Right? So it's
Right.
recurring, which means that, say, for example, Megan, you subbed to me, your $4.99 USD is going to come out of your account, but it's not going to come out in one chunk of $30 for 6 months. It's going to come out over the next 6 months in chunks of $5. And so that to me
Okay.
is a better way to just manage the money. It's a better way to see how things are improving or not improving. Because if everything came in 1 month, then you're trying to figure out, well, anecdotally, I feel like October is this terrible, I'm not getting any subs month. But you have to then constantly remind yourself, oh, but I had a very successful September. And so by having it be reoccurring, even though you're not seeing the new sub like come up as you've earned a new member of the community is here, you're still going to see financially, oh, I'm actually earning the same in October that I did in September. So things are either
Right.
the same or increasing, hopefully. And so from a business standpoint, they don't word it very well in the article.
No.
One of the things that they say is, quote unquote, best of all, streamers will continue to receive the full value of a subscription. It's misleading language. I know what they mean, but I don't think that everyone would necessarily know what they mean. I want to make sure people know that, quote unquote, full value for the streamer is 50% or less, usually less, depending on the country of the subscriber, the country of the streamer, and the taxes and exchange fees involved. So if someone subscribes to my channel at $4.99 USD, I see $2.22. That's not 50%. That's just under 50%. It's about 43% of a tier 1 subscription. That's the average subscription. I don't yet know how Twitch will do the math on the discounted subscriptions. The reason I say that is because Prime Gaming, which used to be Twitch Prime, now rebranded to Prime Gaming, which is a great way to support your favorite streamer. You're already paying for Prime. If you're paying for like Amazon Prime shipping or Prime Video, then you get one free subscription on Twitch that you can give to any streamer that you want. You can change it up per month however you'd like. And as a streamer, I can tell you, I see a precise and consistent $2.49 USD when someone uses Prime Gaming. So that's the 50% that I should be seeing of all tier 1s, right? So I don't know if with the September promotion with the 20, 25, and 30% off of these other subscriptions, how they're going to roll that. They say that I'm going to be seeing the full amount, but is the full amount my normal $2.22, which is, again, with all the fees and taxes and exchanges and stuff like that? Or is it going to be closer to how they handle the Prime gaming stuff? I don't know. What I think they're saying is that the streamer is not going to see 20% less or 25% less. It's Twitch that's going to be having that taken out of their cut. The idea is that the September is meant to support streamers. So I understand that part. I know that that's not how it's going to go. But I have a couple of goals for September. I'm not sure if you're going to be doing much streaming in September either.
I'm hoping to, because I'll have a more consistent schedule, hopefully coming on really soon.
Mm-hmm.
So like one of the benefits of doing what I'm doing now is that I'm going to have the same schedule all the time.
Nice.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
whatever my shift is, I'm always going to know exactly when I'm working, so I'll be able to work around it. I'm hoping I can choose which hours I work. So if I could do a 9 to 6 and then stream afterwards, or have like certain days off or something, ideally that would be the nicest for streaming. But that's still something that's up in the air. That's not been
Right.
organized yet. So that's something I gotta figure out. But once that is figured out, I would love to get back into it. I've been talking about it. I've been planning it. I have a couple of games that have sort of fallen into my lap that I think would be really nice for an easy, slow return, that are different from Minecraft. I still have to get back into Minecraft anyway as well, but
We should just play Minecraft together, even off stream. We should just
we
get
should
together
just
and do
do
some
that.
gaming. Yeah, I've been saying that
That
for a
should
little
just be a thing
while,
we do.
trying to get some people on the Citadel together to do some stuff, just off stream. But everybody seems busy with everything going on, and again,
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is that people are back from vacation, workplaces are switching over things, students and getting back to school and getting ready for school. Any of our mutual friends that have kids are obviously having a lot to consider. So there's it's a busy time. I think once the dust settles, perhaps later in September or even early October, it'll be easier to get back on. I think also too, like I know that I've been taking some of my extra time off to be outside hiking and not on Minecraft. So, once the weather changes and it becomes icy and slippery, I think more time will be spent virtually walking through trees than
Yeah.
not. Um, but the reason I ask is because I'm trying to come up with some ideas to go along with not just have like, hey, save 25%, for people that want to support me on Twitch, but also try to give back and try to have some goals, because I know from experience that having some goals on Patreon, or having some goals to do with the show, specifically with the Spawn Chunks, which is probably, one of my more successful creative endeavors of the last few years. Uh, I want to do a Lego Let's Chat, but the goal is to kind of release that premiere once I hit 100 subscribers. And for those of you that don't know, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging. I'm sitting at around 70-ish at the moment. So it's
That's
not.
great
Thanks.
though.
Oh yeah, no, it's fantastic, and I don't want to sound like at all like I'm complaining about any of this. It's more about just like parsing the information from Twitch, making sure people know what's going on, but then also wrapping my head around it. And thank you. Yeah, the amount of support that I've been getting between Twitch and Patreon, my personal Patreon, has enabled me to stream more often. And so people that are supporting are getting more of what they want, which is basically more streams. Because when I ask, hey, what do you want? They just usually say, we want you to stream more often. It's like, okay. But like I'm trying to also like not get bored by streaming the same thing all the time. So I've worked in some art streams that I've mentioned here on the show a couple times, but I've also, I did these Lego things a long time ago just for fun, like on a lark. When Target was going out of business in Canada, I picked up some Lego sets like really cheap, like 40 to 50% off cheap. And I built them live on camera. Like I just had a camera pointed down at my table. You could see my hands and the pieces. And we just chatted. I just had some music going in the background, like, royalty free digital stuff. And then just chatted with the chat room. And it was great. It was great fun. But I had a much smaller community back then. And I find that sometimes when I'm playing games and streaming, or doing art and streaming, I find it difficult to really engage with the chat. Like I'm reading it, but and I'll answer questions and stuff like that, but it's not like a real sit down let's chat. And you and I have been talking before in the show about not wanting to do. I don't want to do face cam on Twitch, and I feel like this Lego Let's Chat would be a nice way to kind of bridge that gap. So it's
Yeah.
not video game content. It's not a mile a minute. It's something where I can absolutely stop and talk to the chat room, and it doesn't matter. Like it just
Right.
things on the screen are not going to move any faster or slower. And
Right.
so I'm struggling with the technical setup side of it right now, but I've done it before, so it's just a matter of figuring out how to do it again. Basically, my streaming software has just changed since the last time I did it, so I have to reset up all that back end things. But the goal is to have this Lego Let's Chat be an event that is unlocked in September through that event. And then if it's good and people want to see more of it, then I might put it as part of like a Patreon goal or something. And that will be just like a scheduled, I don't want to say weekly, because the problem there is that I have to have the Lego to build. So it might be just something that happens monthly, as kind of like a fun community touch base. Plus, I mean, Lego is cool. I have a few sets, but I don't have enough to keep this going for like, weekly. I'd be done in 3 weeks. so, I'd have to do something else. So and there are some other Lego sets that I'd really like to try, and some fun things that have come out. So I think that'd be an interesting goal. So that's really the only goal is to just kind of increase the subscribers and try to increase the base. and go from there. And I want to try and also cross promote. So I've got yourself and our friend Steven and Alistair and a bunch of other people that I know stream within the community, and I'm going to be trying to like when I'm done streaming, try to either raid or make sure that we point people in different directions within the community as well, because I think there's a lot of similar content um, among kind of our immediate streaming friends, and I'd like to make sure that people know that, like people know that Steven is streaming Minecraft and doing art, and that you
Yeah.
stream some different games. Like I remember, what was it, Wolf Among Us, and some other stuff that you had going when you were streaming. And I think it'd be
Yeah,
fun for
Wolf
people to
Among
get
Us is one of them.
cross promote.
Yeah, no, me too. I definitely agree.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, and we have a great little community, I think, with like the group of us.
Hmm.
I have to actually get back into to absorbing Twitch content. I haven't been very good at it lately. I think just because I haven't been able to manage the time, but that's my
Yeah,
goal is
it's also
to
hard to
get back
discover new
into
people.
watching it.
Yeah, I kind
It
of have to
is,
rely
yeah.
on folks in my community, and kind of like, okay, well, I'm a pretty chill streamer. They're obviously part of my community. They like the kind of content that I like. What other streamers are you watching? And I found a couple of people, but it's been difficult because if I go looking randomly on Twitch, it is like throwing spaghetti at the wall to like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
this looks interesting. They have a moderate audience. It's like between 50 and 100 people. Like that's not small, but it's not ginormous. Like that, they might be just like a really, you know, um, unsung hero, or some person that I might be interested in watching, and then I'd go and I last like 3 seconds, and it's just like, nope. Like it's either the first thing that they say, or they sit there silently for 2 minutes, and I'm just like, no, this is not what I'm here for. And
Yeah.
the problem that I'm running into right now is I do follow a number of streamers that I quite like, but currently their gaming habits are not what I'm interested in. Like,
That's fair.
you know, I well, and it's fine because I mean sometimes they're full time streamers and they're playing what's popular and they're playing what their audience likes, and I just happen to be the outlier that I don't really care to watch Fall Guys. It was fun for 5 minutes, but I can't watch it for
See,
8 hours. Like I'm not. That's
I
not me.
haven't watched Fall Guys, but I would really like to play it.
It
I
looks
think
fun. It looks like a fun kind of like party game, but it
yeah.
doesn't look like something I'm going to
Yes,
invest $30 and play daily. Like
which is fair.
I'm not trying to be top dog in Fall Guys. But it like there are some people that are also playing the new Amazon MMO. What's it called? New World, I think. And again, it's cool to watch in the background here and there, but like it is an uninteresting game. And as much as I like the streamer and like their communities, and I enjoy supporting the streamer, not just the game. If it's a game that I'm really finding dull, I don't find it that engaging.
Yeah.
Because I only really get downtime. Because I mean, my downtime is streaming, or which is fun. I enjoy it, but my downtime is usually like meals, and I have this window of like eating, and I want to like use it wisely, to try
Yeah.
and either catch up on something or enjoy a break. But yeah, it's been interesting. The other thing that I actually have watched, it's not really a TV show, but there was an NVIDIA event, and I don't know how much you know about this, but the NVIDIA GeForce RTX series launch event yesterday, they announced the new 30 series graphics cards. Did you hear any murmurs about this online?
I haven't. No, this is news to me.
So these things are beasts. Everybody has been talking about how great the 2080 and the 2080 Ti and all that kind of stuff is for graphic cards. They're also like $1,400 graphic card. So that's kind of like the elite gaming sort of thing. Or actually, I would hazard to say that some of these 2080 cards are kind of like professional things that you'd be rendering like professional video and things on. But they also have the 2070 series and some stuff that's a little bit more in the prosumer, I guess, range. But the 30 series was announced yesterday, and I won't get all the details about the RAM and the RTX stuff, but essentially, NVIDIA is boasting that these will double the performance of the existing cards, but the price isn't going up.
Ooh.
So 3070 is 499 USD, a 3080 is 699 USD. Pricey, but it's also a beast of a card. And the 3090 is this, professional range, 1499. That's $1,499 USD, but it's boasting 60 frames a second and 8K. Like
Ooh, that's
bananas.
nice though.
Yeah, like you don't need that as a gamer. That's
But
a
that's nice to have
yeah, that's a
though.
show reel kind of thing. But if you're a video editor, like if you're doing professional video, if you're rendering things, if you're doing any of this kind of stuff from home, that's the kind of card that might be in your machine. Like I'm thinking
Yeah.
of people like the Hermitcraft folks that do full-time YouTube content that are making between 4 and 6 videos a week, that kind of a stuff. Like when you hit render and it's done in 20 minutes, like that is life changing as opposed to
Honest,
me hitting render and waiting overnight, you know?
that would be as an editor as well. That would be
Yeah.
very nice.
Yeah.
A
No,
very nice thing to be
exactly.
able to have.
And I don't think that, if you're dealing with a professional, editing rig, if you edit television shows or films, like 14.99 for a video card is not going to shake your,
No.
that's not unexpected, I think, for that level. But the presentation is short. It's about 40 minutes, which is great. And usually these things are like, 2 hours long from these tech companies. But it was, I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. It's Jensen Huang. And
Okay.
he did the CEO broadcast from his kitchen. And he pulled the 3090 out of his oven. And he was very excited to reveal.
That's actually very funny.
Yeah.
That's you can tell that someone having fun with it.
Yeah, well, this is like, hey, it's COVID. We have to be safe. Like, I've got video cards around here to spare, so I'm gonna, broadcast from a webcam in my kitchen. And like, he's professional. Like, he did a very professional presentation. I will suggest, actually, we mentioned Tom Merritt earlier in the show. I will mention DTNS, the Daily Tech News Show, episode 3857. I'll have a link in the show notes. Called Ships on Chips, or Chips on Chips, and they talk about this in more detail. And they're tech journalists, so they give you the nuts and the bolts. They kind of like explain why it's important and all that kind of stuff. So I'll point you towards that Daily Tech News Show episode for the details. But from a gaming perspective and from a streaming perspective, this is two things. I don't necessarily think I'm in the market for any of the 30 series cards because 499 USD translates to something like 750 Canadian. So it's still a lot for the bottom of the line. You're looking at close to $1,000 after taxes for the 3080. I don't play any games that really need it, and if they do need
Right.
it, I'm mad that they need it. Minecraft, it runs notoriously poorly right now on my PC, and I've got a 1660 Ti, so it's mostly like that the game is just not optimized. So it would be a waste of money for me to play the kind of games that I play currently on a 30 series GTX card or a GeForce RTX card. However, uh, as with most things, when the new thing comes out, the old things drop in price. And so a 2070 Super is currently 650 USD. And so I'm wondering, with the release of the 30 series, which double the performance of the existing 20 series, if the 20 series that everybody's been drooling over for the last year and a half are going to start to drop the price. And
I wonder.
that could be really game changing for some people that are struggling with older video cards, or wanting to play new games like Cyberpunk 77 or 2077, and a couple of other things. They had a sizzle reel with the presentation. I don't care about Fortnite, but apparently Fortnite can be played with RTX. Minecraft and RTX is something we covered on the Spawn Chunks, and that looks really cool. But it's Bedrock, so I'm probably not going to play it. But there are some very pretty games that look like they could take advantage of this kind of stuff. And from a art perspective too, I'd like to get into VR, and having a more powerful video card will also help with that stability. So I might, maybe not this year. Maybe I might look closer to Black Friday, as stores are trying to move stock and things like that. Because these 30 series cards are actually available this month. September 17th is when they come out. So we'll have to see what happens.
That sounds really exciting.
Yeah,
That's definitely not something I'll be able to get into like now, but like you said, like, things lower in
Yeah,
price.
give it 2 months to see what the
Hopefully.
industry shakes down, and then in November, when Black
Yeah.
Friday comes along, you're just like, well, it's getting into Christmas time and these holiday deals, and that's when I bought my keyboards and a bunch of things, my peripherals for my computer. That the final touches on the PC, the gaming PC, happened in the Black Friday sales last year. So I'll be looking again this year to maybe make some upgrades. So we'll see what's up. My issue right now is I need a new processor, but thankfully Intel announced their new stuff like in June, so we're starting to see the price drops now on the mid-range chips that I don't like. Again, I don't need the latest greatest, but what I have now needs an update, and so that could be a lot of fun. So a bit of a news heavy TCC this week, just with like a lot of
Yeah.
interesting techie nerdy stuff happening. Um, we do have some listener email though, and I'd like to move on to that because it's always exciting. This year we've had more email, I think, than we have in the last 8 years. So
Which is exciting. This is
yeah,
like the second one that I've been on. No, no. There's been a couple that I've been on that
yeah.
have had
It's
listener
been pretty
emails.
steady. It's been pretty steady, which is good. And actually, one of these emails, and we'll get to that second, is right up your alley. So I'm looking forward to talking about
Yeah.
that. First email comes from Neon for Pencils, and that is directed at both me and a co-host. I'm an up and coming artist myself, and knowing you are a cartoonist, I'd be interested to know what techniques you use to draw with, i.e., a drawing tablet or pen and paper, etc. Well, I can give you kind of a list of the kind of things that I use Neon for Pencils. Honestly, when people ask me this at conventions, because when I used to go to conventions, when those were things that we could do, I would
Mm-hmm.
ultimately get this kind of question from either a parent in the audience or a young artist, or I shouldn't say young, a new artist, because sometimes I've had these questions from people that are in their 40s, but they're just kind of like getting back into drawing for the first time in years. Professionally, my gear hasn't changed since 2012. I'm running a Cintiq 24 HD. It's an old model. There are newer, better models, so I don't necessarily recommend the 24 HD. It was pretty good at the time, but it has some drawbacks. It's not mobile. It's not even mobile around the office. It's like 60 pounds. It's not, it is an establishment. You might as well have a drawing desk.
I've seen it. It's very
Yeah,
big.
it's very big. It's also very heavy, but
Mm-hmm.
it adjusts, and in some ways, it doesn't work on monitor arms, which I think is the biggest drawback. If I was to get a new Cintiq, I would try to get one that would be light enough that you could put it on a adjustable arm, because I'm tall, and my battle is usually that things are too low a lot of the time. But that's what I draw on. It's life changing as an artist to draw directly on the screen compared to using a graphics tablet, which is similar to a mouse and a mouse pad, but you hold a pen. The Cintiq or the drawing on screen experience is much better and much faster. You get what you want more often. I do have an iPad Pro, which I don't have a lot of experience drawing on. I have some because I bought it as a mobile solution to replace the laptop that I have, and then the pandemic happened, so I haven't been drawing outside of the house. And so the Cintiq is 24 inches, the iPad is 13. When I sit down to draw, I'm just going to draw on the 24 inch most of the time. So I just haven't found a use for the iPad. You're going to find that the Cintiqs and the iPads are going to run around the same price range. The difference is that the Cintiq is driven by a computer. There are some all-in-one Cintiqs, but again, depending on what your use case is going to be and what your software requirements are, you might find the investment in something like a tablet, whether it's a Microsoft tablet or an iPad Pro or something like that, is going to be um, better, because you can do a lot more obviously with an iPad Pro than just draw on it. Whereas the only thing I can do on the Cintiq is draw. Like that's it. It's its sole purpose in life. Um, and also, I subscribe to the Adobe Creative Suite on my desktop, so I get access to Photoshop, InDesign, Premiere, all that kind of stuff. Uh, on the iPad Pro, the cheaper version of something like that is called Procreate. And a lot of professional artists, I've seen people that are working for places like DreamWorks and other professional animation houses using things like Procreate to do illustration and character design. So it's a very robust program, and it's only $15 Canadian. So you can look at that and weigh those options if you're looking into digital stuff. Because really, for me, the iPad has replaced my my not desktop, my laptop needs, and I can draw on it when I need to. So there's kind of pros and cons in both areas. The Adobe subscription, by the way, is $80 a month. Not a single time
So
purchase. Yeah,
much.
not a single time purchase of
So much
15.
money.
And if I wasn't a slave to it, like if I didn't need it professionally, if I didn't like I have a real issue with the fact that I'm paying Adobe $80 a month for the subscription and I don't use the latest versions of any of their software because they're too buggy, right? I'm using Photoshop
Yeah.
2019, not 2020, because 2020 just is slow and it shouldn't be on my current setup. So there's a lot of stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that I find troublesome. Another bonus for Procreate is that you can save to a PSD. So if you have a client that requires a PSD, you can move things around that way. So and Procreate is not the only drawing app out there. There's others. I used to really like Sketchbook from, I don't remember the name of the software company, but Sketchbook is another good one. And on a desktop, you don't have to use Photoshop. There's also, oh, it used to be called Manga Studio and now it's called something else. I'm going to look that up right now because otherwise I'm going to forget. Um,
I think I've heard of it.
yeah, it is called
Sorry.
Clip Studio Paint. I'm not sure why they changed the name, but Clip Studio Paint is used by a lot of professionals that I've seen in the comics industry, and it really all depends on what uh, their workflow is used to. And if you're a professional comics colorist, like what can you do the most in efficiently? And people just use whatever they're best, suited for. But those are the kind of your options. There are always cheaper options than something like the Adobe Suite. To talk about things like physical media, I absolutely still draw with pencil, pen, brush pen, paper, or Bristol. It is cheap and the skills are the same. You can do a lot with colored layers and special effects in Photoshop, but if you can't draw with pencil and paper, then you're not going to be much good. So a lot of times when people ask in, again, those convention panels about like how to start off, I always recommend things like a sketchbook, pencil and paper. It's direct, it's easy, it's super cheap, and it's portable. You can take it anywhere. I particularly like things like Pentel brush pens, Copic multiliners, Micron felt tip liners. The difference there is that Copic multiliners are more expensive, but they're refillable, whereas Micron felt tip liners are, I say disposable, you basically toss them in the trash. So I don't like the plastic footprint, so I prefer the Copic multiliner for refilling. Pentel brush pen is also refillable. Uh, I use Strathmore Smooth Bristol. You'll find that that's probably a industry standard no matter which way you ask. As for sketchbooks, they're a dime a dozen. You can go through reams trying to find ones that you really like. There is a Canadian art supply store called Dessert here in the province that I have been using for years, and I get into their brown paper sketchbooks for a couple of reasons. The brown paper is a little bit thicker, so I'm an aggressive sketcher, and so the paper stands up to me manhandling it better. But also with colored paper, you can do things like add dark and light. So I can use like a white pen and a black pen and get like highlights as well as shadows. Works great for markers and things like that. So that kind of stuff you can explore and have some fun with. But if you're looking for cartoon stuff specifically, don't discount just good old pen and paper. I drew Starcrossed, the comic strip that I drew for years traditionally. I would every once in a while I would do a digital version, but most of the time I would draw it on paper first and just polish it up. Do the things that took forever by hand digitally. Like once I made a font out of my handwriting, I did all the balloons in Photoshop. The only time I would hand letter a comic is if someone bought it, and then I would hand letter it so that it would have the speech balloons on their wall. But most of the time, presenting it online, a good chunk of my comics, I want to say more than 70% of the comics in the little bin that I have are empty because they're penciled with the balloons, but the black and white speech balloons are on Photoshop just because it's so much easier, so much easier to do. Um, I do. I mean, I think that you've dabbled in some art. Do you do any digital stuff?
I definitely want to. I'm saving up for a particular tablet right now. I'm just waiting on some funds to come in so I can work on getting that. But my sister has a tablet and a drawing pen, so she just got it for her birthday, which is today actually. And so I mean, she draws a lot more than I ever really did. Like I drew, I was drawing in the '90s when there was no tablets. That wasn't a thing. So I stuck with good old pencil and colored pencils. Like that's kind of what I dealt with. And even now, like when I do doodle, when I do sketch, it's honestly with a mechanical pencil because I don't have anything in the way of like professional art um, tools right now. I don't have. I want to get some better markers and stuff and some better pens. That is something that I want to invest in at some point. But I literally I just did some doodles a couple days ago and mechanical pencil as a sketch, and then I went over it with a ballpoint pen, and it worked fine. Your hand hurts afterwards. Like I don't feel like you can be as gentle. Like I think that's what I when I've tried programs on drawing tablets and things like that, especially at work. It's I've really liked them, and you can be really gentle with your. It takes a lot of pressure off of your wrist, because I mean, some of them are force reactive, so depending on how much pressure you put on it, the darker lines will be, but you can adjust that in the settings so you can still be very, very gentle, but still get, strong lines, which is nice. So I did find that like my wrist hurts now because it's my first time getting back into doodling after so long. And I'm also very forceful. Like I'm a really light sketcher, but I'm a very forceful liner. Like my inking is like I go super hard on it, and I don't know why. I think I'm just trying to be so precise, and I don't know. But
I don't press hard when I was inking, but I have such a precise style that
yes,
my hand would cramp up. I have to remind myself not to put a
yes,
death
and
grip
I do
on
that
my
too. I
pens
death
and
grip
my liners
stuff.
when I was working.
So the digital medium I was hoping would kind of
Yeah.
teach me to get out of the death grip, because it's hard. But the thing that I like about it is that no line is permanent. If you screw something up, you can just undo that one thing you did and then start again.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Cue the eye rolls from my chat room when doing live art. I'm drawing a line like 7 times over and deleting it, and everyone's like, "That was the
Yeah.
same line. Why did you do?"
No, was
I'm
it?
like, "No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't." Like there's a certain flow that I'm looking for. There's some things I
Yeah,
can't
it's a
even
feel.
explain
It's a
about how
physical
that goes.
feel of when you're doing it too, right? So
Actually, that reminds me, Neon for Pencils, and thanks again for writing in. But there are a couple of VODs on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Joel Duggan of me working on emotes for the channel. So drawing live for a couple hours. So if you want to kind of go see what a Cintiq and Photoshop looks like in the workflow of like real professional work, then you can go check that out. I think the VOD should still be there. I have to double check that, but that's one avenue. I'll be doing it again at some point in the future too, so you can hopefully catch one of those. The next email comes from Anonymous, and it is about Recorded by Arizal. Hey, so I just watched Recorded by Arizal, the prelude on Rooster Teeth, and I was wondering what your opinions were. If you haven't watched it, it's a combined 20 minutes on Rooster Teeth on YouTube. I have very little to say, but I'm sure Megan will have more. This was not on my radar, but it's very cute. I watched the first prelude episode. It was only 4 minutes. It's on par with a lot of TV animation that I've seen in the same sort of style. It's traditional kind of like, I don't want to say puppet animation, but you can tell that it's not redrawn constantly. Like it's
yeah.
some sliding assets and stuff. But it's very well done. It's obviously done by someone with a lot of skill. But any kind of production like this has a budget. So like you can't make, a Disney feature with a limited TV budget. And this does very well. It's well designed. It looks like a lot of, the design trend is kind of like what I've seen in a lot of cartoons these days, things like She-Ra and stuff like that, in just terms of the aesthetics and whatnot. But it's very well made. Great voice acting. Really good voice acting, I thought, in the little 4-minute clip. And there was some really funny moments. There's a point where the character is wondering how
She's like
long they can hold
prompts.
their breath, and there's like a jump cut, and it goes to like, you're like, where did she go? And then she comes up from below the shot gasping for air, and it was cute. Like I laughed out loud at a couple of points in the video. Has that kind of like vloggy jump cut style to it, so the pacing is really good. But you're the resident Rooster Teeth expert, so I'm curious about like where this is on your radar, what you thought of it if you've watched the whole thing. Like, so what do you think?
So Issa Bardiola, she's become a very prevalent face of Rooster Teeth. I think because of her work in animation, but because she's, you know, one of the few women of color on the team. They've given her a bit more of a voice, which I appreciate a lot, because we definitely need more people of color representation. But she's worked on various shows. She got into the company because of Ruby, and then worked on Ruby for a couple of seasons, and then stopped working on Ruby to do a series that's on the Rooster Teeth website proper for members of the website called Ruby Rewind, where they basically review the story, because she's just a fan of the story anyway. But because of that, she started working on other things. So they have another show called Camp, and they have another one called Nomad from Nowhere, or Nomad of Nowhere. And this is sort of her baby that she pitched. And I think because it kind of, this, like, the little preludes are born out of necessity, because I think they still wanted to pique interest, but around the time that they started working on it is when COVID first hit and lockdown was mandatory. And so this was, I think the vlog style is kind of there as a way to kind of be like, hey, listen, we're all doing vlogs right now. But also it's an easy way to introduce a character. So I think it's done pretty brilliantly. So it's really nice to see Issa, who's, you know, been such a face, but has usually been, you know, working for other people. It's nice to be able to see her lead something, and, you know, have something that's been created. And like one of the top comments from the first, prelude episode was, there's not enough Filipino media out there. And it's true. Like, it just goes to show how important representation is. And because Issa is Filipino, having this representation it's good. It's necessary. And I think it's something that, you know, we all should strive to see and try and embrace. And I know that she was really concerned that it wouldn't do well, but I think Arizal is just I think everyone can see a little bit of themselves in Arizal, because she's just so earnest and so passionate that, I don't know, even though I'm not Filipino, I still resonate with Arizal a little bit. And I think that's, the writing has been it's very sweet and it's very gifted. And one of the things that stuck out to me, I watched all of them, because I can't watch just one. And it's like the last episode is like 5 minutes, or the last prelude episode is 5 minutes. And, you know, she kind of goes through this brief period where she's concerned because she, you know, has this ambition to be a record keeper, and talks to a real record keeper, and he kind of, you know, sheds some ugly light on what it's like to do it professionally. Because I know oftentimes as kids, like, we have this preconceived notion of like, oh, this is going to be so great, and it is great, but then you don't anticipate it that it's also going to be work, and there's also hard moments in it. So she goes to this struggle of just like, is this something that I really want to do though? Like, now that I know it's not, you know, what I imagine it to be. And she's still, you know, she's like, I figured I should still try, which resonated with me a lot, because I've been, you know, trying continuously to get into the film industry, and I'm still trying. And there's a point where I was just like, should I just stop? Because it's obviously not going anywhere. But, you know, she talks about her friend Rosella, who's, you know, you never hear her voice, but she comes up a lot in text conversations. And Rosella, she mentions that Rosella tried 3 times to get into something before she was accepted. So it's like, you just got to keep trying if you really like it. And I think it's a good message to have in something so short. But it ends in a way that there's clearly more to come. And I think they're planning on a full show, like a full series. And this was just meant to be a way during COVID to introduce the characters, that you know who she is and that you can love her. And I think she's very lovable. And I think it's going to be really good. I'm hoping that there's more that comes out soon, because I really like it so far.
She's an appealing character. it's an
Yeah.
interesting story. They don't slam you over the head with the details, right? Like they mention places and things and job positions, and you're kind of left like, oh, wait a minute, okay, she's got like a digital business card thingy and that, so it's obviously like kind of sci-fi or maybe a little bit future dystopian. Like there's a lot of stuff in there that they
Mm-hmm.
don't explain, which is nice. It's
Yes.
visual cues and well thought out. There's a world there, and you don't need to know
Yeah.
everything about it, but you need to know that it's just not the one that you're in.
Yeah.
But there's going to be some allegory. There's going to be some parallels between this world, I'm sure, and the one we all live in. Because as you said, like, is it Yissa? Is that how you pronounce her name?
Isa.
Issa.
Isa.
Issa obviously has some things to say, and I just really I've tried to look into Rooster Teeth before at your recommendation, and I always bail because it's not something I can usually watch. But I watched this first 4 minute clip quite easily because it's well done, and I find I'm not a fan of machinima style cartoon. It just
And I'm not
not my
like
favorite.
I never got into Red versus Blue. Like that's kind of what Rooster Teeth became known for. That was their internet popularity was Rooster Red versus Blue, like one of the first machinimas that gained traction, and it's still going. It still has a pretty faithful following. But what brought me to Rooster Teeth kind of by accident was there's an ongoing joke. There's either two ways you get into Rooster Teeth. It's either with Red versus Blue, or it's with a series of videos called Rage Quit. And
Oh,
it's this
okay.
guy named Michael who he's playing a game, and it starts off really quiet and introspective, and it's that little bouncing block, and you have to jump it over like spikes and things and holes and whatnot, and then you can see like attempt 700 and whatever at the top or something, and it's really quiet, and you can tell he's trying to get like really focused into it, and then the first time he screws up, he just yells the F word, and it's just this constant barrage of just like anger, but he's so funny. I don't know, it's Michael's very funny. But Ruby was the first animated series that I watched. I think because it looked so different, and because I do have like a background of enjoying anime, but I've been really picky about the anime that I've tried to watch lately. My sister tried to recommend a bunch to me. I'm just like, like I'm just not super into it these days. But specifically Ruby, like it was Americanized enough that I found the story easy to follow, but it was still, and it was different enough and quirky enough that it was unique, and it was nice to be able to see um, again, female lead characters that are clearly very capable and very strong, um, but done in a style that was palatable for me. But it's just gotten better over time. Like when you get into the later, like the first seasons are pretty rough because they were dealing with a very very small team, and they didn't have current. They had next to no budget, and they had very limited technological resources at their disposal. But now that as they've gone through, the animation has just improved even further, and it looks beautiful now.
See, I mean, and people can call me an animation snob, but like I watched the Ruby Volume 6 trailer before the show today just to kind of see where it
Yeah.
was, and I was just like, "Whoa, woof! I can't watch this at all. It's
No,
not, no, no." And I think a lot of it is just that I come from a different school of
that's fair,
what I
and that's
feel is
totally
a
fair. It's
cartoon
not for
and stuff like
everybody.
that. And that's why I was so surprised because when I went to go watch the Arizal prelude, I was just like, "Oh wow, no, this is impressive." Like
Hmm.
and engaging and easy to watch and I don't want to say I'm coming down on just Rooster Teeth because I mean it's anything. It doesn't matter whether it's made by DreamWorks or whoever. Like because there's been some DreamWorks Netflix shows that are supposed to be really good, and I watched 3 minutes of them. It's like nope, I cannot watch this slidey, terrible,
Mm.
lip sync not working garbage. I had to struggle to get through the Transformers War for Cybertron series. The story was compelling, but the animation drove me crazy. Like it was really hard to watch. You just kind of like you have all these opportunities. You obviously have the license for this massive IP. How is this not better? And knowing that Rooster Teeth has been around for as long as it has been, um, I kind of feel like I've seen fan art for Ruby that makes me go, ooh, I might like this show. And then I go watch
Mm.
parts of the show or a trailer for the show. I'm like, nope. not not for
Yeah,
me. It's the kind
it's
of thing where like I might want to read it as a comic. Like I might prefer the graphic
and
novel
there
version.
are comics. There are definitely comics there. But like yeah, the first going back and watching the first two seasons of Ruby is pretty hard. Even the third season is kind of chunky looking. But once they moved over into what's called the Maya engine, and it's created a lot more smoothness to it. But I think that this is introducing a whole new animation system that they're going to even migrate Ruby into again at some point, because a lot of their smaller shows like Camp Camp and Nomad of Nowhere or Nomad from Nowhere are using a similar style as Arizal. So Ruby is very stylistic because that's what the creator Monty wanted. So they've really, really stuck with what Monty wanted, because Monty passed away midway through the run of the show. So I think he passed away after season 2, and now we're on season 6, and he was hoping to be there for the full thing, but so that they've really tried to keep his vision alive just to honor his memory, which I get, but I get it's not for everybody. Like I think for me, story trumps everything else.
Right.
So
And I think too that like, there's something to be said for something for everybody in the Rooster Teeth roster, because they're looking over the thumbnails on the YouTube website. I'm just like, there's a lot of stuff that isn't for me. And obviously I've seen these kind of cringy thumbnails, and I know that they're successful creators, and I know that there's people doing stuff like this out there, but I also know just from the audience they're trying to grab that it's just not meant for me. It's meant for either a younger audience, or it's meant for maybe the meme
yeah,
heavy, or people that have just a different, experience and different way of processing pop culture in the form of cartoons that current kids, will have now compared to what I have, because I grew up in the 80s. Like it's just a different thing. And
yeah,
I'm not saying that I don't have, monsters in my closet. I really enjoyed Beast Wars, the Transformers Beast Wars cartoon when it was on in the 90s.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
and going back and watching that, it's terrible. Like
It's awful.
the animation in it is gross, but it's what we had. It's what we had at the time.
Yeah,
So so like I'm aware of that. Like when I criticize things like Ruby, like I'm aware that I don't always have like the best the best things in my repertoire of what I would say was good animation. But it's one of those things that is the curse of being a cartoonist, and having someone that, being someone that does have animation training.
yeah, you
And
look at everything with a very critical
oh
eye,
man,
which is fine. Like that's I
me
don't think that's
yeah.
something that ever leaves you. Like I look at films with a very critical eye in terms of continuity and storytelling and things like that, because I have a background in that. So it's you're not wrong. Your perception is its own thing.
Speaking of animation, actually, to move on into just wrapping up what we've been watching this week, because it's a short list for me, and I don't really have a lot to say because they're things that I've talked about on the show before. I'm trying to wrap up Three Below season 2. Trying to finish. I'm finding it really sloggy. I'm maybe 1 or 2 episodes away from the end, and then trying to move on to watch Wizards. There's a little crossover bit between um, the kids from Trolls now. So there's a bunch of Trolls characters in Three Below, and honestly, it's one of my favorite parts of it. So I'm hoping that when I move on to Wizards, that I'll be back into it a little bit more. The thing that I find unfortunate about Three Below, because it looks fantastic, it's like as you mentioned, it's the story, it's the character decisions that they're making, and the things that are happening. Where there's this big battle with this Mondo character, uh, who actually I'm not a big fan of the design, but there's this struggle between the two main kid characters and this Mondo bad guy, and he wins out of just pure stupid writing. And it's just like this whole sequence went on for 15 minutes, and they could have summed it up in 2. And so now I have another episode to watch, because they needed these guys to lose. They needed the heroes to be down and down on their luck and up against insurmountable odds and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not finding it as exciting a show as I once did. So it's a bit of a slog to get through. The other thing on my list is American Gods season 2. I'm trying to get through this. I liked season 1, but season 2 is just really, really slow, with really like disturbing fits of violence. Like it doesn't go. There's no fist fights. It goes from like popping people's heads to like it's gross. Like I made the mistake of watching it over dinner last night, and I was just like, "Oh God, no! I don't." It's up to the point now where it reminds me of Walking Dead, and um, I don't I didn't dislike Walking Dead. It just wasn't for me. It was just like, no, I don't like the way that the show makes me feel. I'm kind of just back off of it. And American Gods, it's an amazing concept. I think it's really interesting. I do feel like,
It's Neil Gaiman,
yeah, but
who's an amazing conceptual
yeah,
writer.
but the direction of the show is really heady, and
Yeah.
it has this really, and I'm sure it's by intention. It has this uneasy juxtaposition of very slow visual storytelling with very loud background sound. Like there's just a lot of like screeching and grinding and just weird noises and blinding lights and awkward close-ups of actors who must be just cringing every day to go to work. It's like I know how many nose hairs the main character has because half the time the camera is like an inch from his face. And it's just like I find that kind of stuff really off-putting. And
Hmm.
the characters emotionally just seem to go on this weird roller coaster. Right now, I can't remember everybody's name. Shadow's the main character. His ex-wife, who's not a nice person, is dead. She's a corpse, and she's trying to save him.
Laura.
Laura. She's trying to save him. And then there's the leprechaun, who actually I find is the most amusing out of everybody. Um, but it's
Leprechaun is pretty funny.
yeah, he's also like
My-
a 6'4" leprechaun. Like he's a big dude.
Yeah.
He's a big
He's a
Irish
big
boxer.
dude.
Yeah, but it's one of
Yeah.
those things that it's just like they just kind of reveal things as they need them in the story, and it's just like, well, what is this thing that he just did, and like, why didn't he do that before? And it feels really kind of convoluted. Anyway, it's
Yeah.
really gross. I find, and I say gross in both like visual violence, but also emotionally gross. It's also just like the villain. I'm trying to remember his name. He was in Back to the Future.
Oh, I know who you're talking
Crispin
about.
Glover is
Yes, Crispin
a
Glover.
weird dude and probably the best suited for this character. He plays Mr. World, who I think is one of the main bad guy god
He's a
characters.
new god.
The new god, whatever.
Yeah.
And he is creepy, and I mean that as I guess a compliment. But the problem is I don't feel like Kristen Glover is really stretching for the role. You know what I mean? Like
No.
it just knowing what you know about him, you're just gonna like, yeah, this is really creepy, but you know, like it's not creepy in a good way, as in this is such a great performance. It's creepy and like they just basically typecast everybody, and it's just like,
Yeah.
oh,
I do have to say though, Gillian Anderson. I love Gillian Anderson anyway as
Right,
media.
media,
She's so good. Like she's so good. Because when you first see her, she looks like Lucille Ball.
yeah,
Because she's in a TV and she's talking to Shadow, and she was just like, they worship me, and I'm a new god that became out of this. And then the second time you see her, she's dressed as David Bowie, and then the next time you see her, she's Marilyn Monroe, and then she ends up looking like Rita Hayworth at another point, and like every time you see her, she looks like a different television media figure. And it's so good. Like she's a chameleon, but at the same time, like she's just. I always say this because I watched Sex Education. I won't talk about it too much, but Gillian Anderson exudes this weird sort of sensuality in everything that she does, and she's just a very pleasing actor to watch.
she is.
She's just very nice to watch.
Yeah, she was also in a British crime drama, and I don't remember the name of it.
Yes,
I didn't.
I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah, I didn't
I
end up finishing it. I just remember it being really good, but also just too dark for me. Like it at the time that it was out, I was like, I don't want another show about like serial killer crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And so it was not a ding on the show. Just I wasn't in the mood for it. But I remember thinking like, oh man, I've not seen this side of her in something before. And same with season 1. I really enjoyed her in season 1 of American Gods, but I haven't seen her in season 2 yet. I'm only 2 episodes into season 2, so she hasn't been back. There's this other dude. I can't remember what he is. He's like the internet, or he's some other digital. He's basically the kind of person I want to pitch off the bus whenever I see them.
He's such a dickhead.
Oh my
It's
God.
honestly like
Yeah.
everything about him. He's just like some kind of like frat boy,
Yeah.
just frat e-boy.
Yeah,
Just like the worst kind of internet troll.
Yes. Yeah. Like the kind of person that can just get away with anything and
Yeah.
makes you hate them. Like, oh yeah, no,
Yeah.
and it's not, and again, it's probably a good performance. Like it's probably like a good character, but like I'm kind of done with shows that present us with characters that you're meant to hate because I don't like
Mm-hmm.
feeling like that. You know, like I,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I really well. For example, for to save myself from all the stuff that I'm struggling to get through, I ended up rewatching Infinity War, Endgame, and Man of Steel. Uh,
Wow, you must have been really
yeah.
desperate.
I mean, I've been rewatching a bunch of Marvel films over the last month or so. So inevitably, I was going to get to Infinity War and Endgame. But again, Thanos, bad guy. But you you dislike him and you don't want him to win. But he's also an appealing character. Like he doesn't make
I have
you.
my own opinions of Thanos, but
Yeah, but he's not. What's the name of this American Gods character that we're talking about? The internet dude,
oh
the
god,
frat.
I don't
I don't
know.
remember. So frat. He's not frat boy. He doesn't. You don't hate him that way. You know what I mean? You hate him in a Darth Vader way. You know, you hate him in a in a comic book villain way. Like he has to be stopped because he's doing a terrible thing. But he's not irritating, I guess is what it is. He's threatening, but he's not irritating. And that's what I find about the American God situation is that all of the bad guys are irritating. Like it's like nails on a chalkboard whenever they're on screen. And I don't find it appealing. Because there's something to be said for, like I said, about, what's her name there? The Arizal. She's appealing. And you can have the
yes.
appeal in both villains and heroes, right? Like villains can be appealing, um, and I would say that Thanos is an appealing villain, right? But
Yes, yeah.
but I don't have that appeal with the bad guys in American Gods. Like none of them. I'm just like, you all just make my skin crawl, and
Mhm.
it's the same thing I had with The Walking Dead. It's like the antagonists in that series all just like are the underbelly of humanity personified, and you're just like, I don't need this thrown in my face. Like I don't want this, and that's why I kind of went back, I think, to Infinity War and Endgame and Man of Steel. I mean, you can say what you want about Zod. I mean, Man of Steel is not the best Superman movie, but it's I really enjoy Cavill and I really enjoy the dynamic between Lois Lane and Clark in that film.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I go back to it, and but it's also very loud. Like I had to take breaks because there's just
It is very loud. There's a lot of
a lot of
explosions in that.
explosions and destructions and the gravity effects and all those kind of stuff. It's very intense. But I don't know. I just really enjoy Cavill as Man of Steel, and the other films that he's in as Superman are not very good. So I wanted to see Man of Steel. We got into it because a couple weeks ago, Brockett and I were talking on the Citadel Cafe about Man of Steel, and I just realized it was on Netflix in Canada. It's like, well, I'm gonna watch it just because.
Well, it's there.
Yeah.
Speaking of Cavill, Colin and I watched the making of The Witcher last night, which is actually it's like a little short documentary. It's like half an hour, but it's actually pretty interesting. It kind of goes into like the story of The Witcher and how like the books were never meant to be, they were never meant to gain the traction that they did. Like the guy who wrote them, he's not a writer. He's a historian. So he just went and started compiling sort of like stories and sort of made up this little plot around it, and then it became the backbone of Polish, mythical culture. And it's a lot of Polish people, are very, very passionate about The Witcher. So when it became, a game series and now a TV series, there's a lot of Polish people who are working on the show, and they're basically like consultants for how everything is supposed to be. It was very interesting. If you like, I really liked featurettes. Like whenever like buying DVDs were a
Yep.
thing, the first thing I would do is I would load up the featurettes and be like, how'd they make this? And so it's kind of going back to the featurette style of behind the scenes sneak peek of like design and it's not in great detail, and I'm hoping that there's going to be more detail that comes out of it in the future. But it's cool. I don't know. I like to watch stuff like that.
I even was thinking as I was struggling to find something new on Netflix to watch about trying to give The Witcher another go. And I think a lot of that is just because I'm a fan of Henry Cavill. Like I kind of
Mm.
enjoy his screen presence. Um,
How far did you get into it?
I watched the whole thing. I watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
I just didn't like
I
it.
feel like it's something you have to watch twice because I watched it the first
Yeah,
time. I was like, okay.
yeah,
And then I watched it again. I was like, okay.
right.
I get it now.
Yeah,
So I'm wondering if you'd like it more on a second
I
pass now
might.
that you know what to
And I
expect.
do plan to watch it a second time before I watch the second season because I mean I
Yes.
do find the world interesting. I just found that they didn't execute in a way that I thought was
You didn't like
commu-
the pacing of it.
no, the pacing and the communication was not great.
Mm.
But and in some cases the acting was mediocre, but in other places it was fantastic and the action was good and some poignant moments were great. So like there's peaks and valleys in The Witcher for me, and
Yeah.
so that I will return to it, especially because I know having seen interviews, Instagram clips with Cavill about the series and knowing how passionate he is about it and how passionate he says everybody working on it is, like, it's kind of hard to have that amount of passion around a project and have it always be bad. Like so, it's
Mm.
gonna. I feel like they might have some lessons learned because I'm not the only one with these criticisms from season one. So I'm curious to see how they handle and if they pivot at all, or if they
Yeah.
stick to how they try to do season one and just be like tough nuggets, folks. This is how we're going to do it. I don't think they're going to do that. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. I love commentaries. I don't know. I think there's something really special about commentaries because it feels like you're watching them with the people that you really like who made the thing. And then you also get a little bit more like personal details about how it happened. And like, I don't know, me as a filmmaker, I like to hear the fun things that happen behind the scenes that you don't get to see in the final product.
Speaking of art, actually, this week and all the behind the scenes stuff, I have a really cool Internet Minute pick. And if you're wondering what the Internet Minute is, it's a little section at the end of the show where I let you know that the Citadel Cafe is brought to you by you. We are 100% listener supported. If you're getting value out of the show, please consider putting a little bit of value back in. You can become a member at patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. That'll get you access to the member only Discord server, as well as access to extended audio tracks when we do them. You can find that again at patreon.com/the Citadel Cafe. And this is going to be a little bit of a local pick. You are probably going to be aware of this if you're from Dartmouth, my hometown. But if you're not, then you'll get a little bit of a window into my neighborhood. And this is the Downtown Dartmouth Art Walk. You can get it at downtowndartmouth.ca. I'll have a link in the show notes. I found this actually came across my desk on Facebook earlier, which is not normally a place I frequent, but I just happened to be there. And the Downtown Dartmouth Business Commission did a feature on the Marissa mural. It's a multi-story mural by Ottawa-based artist Dan Metcalf. He and local artist to Halifax, Dartmouth, Christian Toth, painted the piece during the Hopscotch Urban Art Festival in 2017. That is a September festival here in Dartmouth, and hopefully it'll be coming up again soon. Metcalf says the piece is one of his all-time favorites. It's really cool. It's at 30 Portland Street downtown. I had to kind of work my brain as to where this was, but I know where it is now. And there's multiple art pieces, art installation, large wall murals, things that involve like neon lights and a bunch of different stuff, all on this Downtown Dartmouth Art Walk page, which I thought was really cool because these are things that
That's
like
really neat.
very often I will. There's a couple of these that are on my jogging route. Like I run by a number of these things like a couple times a week. But never thought to stop and wonder who painted them and where are the artists now and what was the inspiration and stuff. So it was a really interesting kind of like look into what a lot of people might find graffiti based, but it's like that reclaim movement of like, well, instead of trying to keep graffiti off of these blank walls, why don't we just hire artists and or graffiti artists to make something intentional and have it stick around? And it has this nice effect of like usually people that tag that aren't, asshats will just not do it because the wall has already been, designated as art space. And for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason, there's this unsung camaraderie. It's like, well, that's not a graffiti piece, but like I'm not going to tag that because that's really cool. And so I like that kind of like shift in downtown Dartmouth. It's cool because a lot of this stuff can be around like Canal Street, Queen Street, Dartmouth Cove, and those places are usually off the beaten path. There's a lot of train tracks and things like that, so usually you get a lot of graffiti. I see a lot of photography happening downtown Dartmouth as well. A lot of people are using these walls as backdrops for, local business photography or taking portraits, working on stuff like that. So it's really cool. That wraps up this episode of the Citadel Cafe. You can get more about the show and links to some of the things that Megan and I talked about at thecitadelcafe.com. Music for the show was composed by Kevin MacLeod, and you can, of course, email us at thecitadelcafe@gmail.com. Keep those emails coming. They're a lot of fun. Subscribe for free on iTunes, Android, Stitcher, Spotify, and YouTube. But, of course, word of mouth is the easiest way to support the show. Just tell a friend that they should listen to the Citadel Cafe and where they can find it. You can also leave a star review on the Apple Podcasts app or the Spotify podcast app, basically wherever you find your podcast. That will help strangers find the show. My name is Joel Duggan. You can find everything I am doing online, including my illustration and design portfolio at joelduggan.com. If you're interested in hiring me there, just drop me a line through the site. You can also find me on the Spawn Chunks podcast at thespawnchunks.com, where we talk about Minecraft every Monday. This past week, actually, we talked about Minecraft Dungeons. There's an expansion to that game coming out on Tuesday next week. So it's Creeping Winter. We're going to be talking about that probably a lot on the show for the next little while. You can also follow me on Twitter and other social media at Joel Duggan, and of course twitch.tv/Joel Duggan for all of the live art and live gaming stuff. Megan, where can people find you online?
Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch at Megan Townsend.
You've been listening to the Citadel Cafe, where we are fast, easy, and cheap, but you can only pick two.